Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is JJ. I'm a reader, a writer, and a lover of stories. And today, I want to give you a book review for my most recent read, which is, drumroll please, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. I recently reviewed An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, so if you haven't seen that review, I'll link it either down below or somewhere up top so that you can see my thoughts on that one as well. First of all, I loved An Absolutely Remarkable Thing and fully intend on rereading it in print so I can highlight things because I listened to that one in audiobook. This one I read in hardcover from pretty much beginning to end. There was like a brief moment where I had the audiobook. Does anybody else do that? Do you guys like swap between formats of the same book depending on where and how you're reading and your like travel plans? Because I do that all the time where I'm like, oh, I'm already reading this book, I may as well. And then I just end up having like 3 different formats of it. Anyway, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor, Hank Green, The Carls, #2. I don't think I'm capable of talking about this book without spoilers, so I can't even really give you a whole lot about why I like this book without referring to spoilers. The short version is I really liked it. I didn't like it as much as I liked the first one, but it's still like really good. There's a lot about how Hank does his writing, where he's diving into and considering all of these big, heavy topics and inviting you to think deeply about them with him. And that is something that is really impressive. And you can tell that he's been doing that a really long time. I think there, as much as, and I said this in the first one, as much as April is Hank in his expression of understanding how fame works and his own rise to fame and how influence and power can shift depending on how much of an audience you have. This one is also about how that power then can be used for good or bad. And, you know, to quote Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. I think that pretty much sums up the whole like point of this book, is that those in power need to be careful with that power because it is too much. It's often too much power in the hands of small groups of people, which is an interesting dilemma. I didn't realize they did that with the bee. That's so cool. Anyway, the cover design has all of these little faces on them, and the bee has the nose for the face behind it, and I didn't realize that until just now. And An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, also cover design-wise, it's all the Carls, which is so cool. It's so fun. And then this one is just all people, which I think is very thematically relevant. Also, the color combinations of these 2 books next to each other, what a crazy combo. Like they're so vibrant. Anyway, we're not talking about this book today though. We're talking about this one, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor. Okay, from here on out there will be spoilers. So yeah, there's no way to talk about it without talking about it blatantly, and there's just no way around it. So yeah, like I said, I really liked this book. I didn't like it as much as the first one, and I think it's because April May is the kind of character that you love and you can't help but to love, and even when she's making horrible decisions that are going to negatively impact everyone in her life, you still feel drawn to her. And I can't say that I feel the same way about Andy Scamped. Andy Scamped is one of the main characters in this one. So the first one is like pretty much 100% April's point of view up until the very, very, very end. This one is alternating points of view between Andy, Miranda, and Maya, and then eventually April, and this was the fun one that I didn't see coming, Carl. So that's kind of an interesting conundrum. I think there are things that I really liked, especially when you're comparing them or reading them back to back. In the first one, Carl feels like this unknowable, almost God, right? Like it's this unknowable being with way too much power, way too much knowledge, influence into every single human being on the planet's mind. And that's, you know, we don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but April chooses to believe that it's a good thing, and therefore that story and that influence, her influence, is also impacting us as readers in that way. And in this one, Carl becomes much more personal. He becomes more of a person. And so he goes from being this like construct to literally inhabiting a little monkey speaking through a smartwatch, which, you know, there's things about it that it's just absurdity. So in that way, it kind of feels like a mix of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy meets Ready Player One. That's how I would describe the style of this book. But it's also like, I don't know, taking Carl from this giant, beautiful, incredible robot statue creature and then putting him into this tiny little monkey. It doesn't diminish who Carl is, but it also made it a lot harder to idolize him, which I think might have been the point. Additionally, we also run into Fish, who, for lack of a better, there's no other way to talk about Fish other than being Carl's brother, which is a terrifying construct as well, right? So like we have Carl, who's at least benevolent. Fish is not. Fish does not care. Fish wants to ensure that humanity survives in peace, and that's peace at any cost necessary. Whereas Carl is like, I want humanity to survive and to be off of the potentially destructive paths, and it'll be great, right? He wants to preserve what is good about humanity, whereas Fish just wants to like literally keep humans, and that's it. And so there's some debates about ethics and morality in there. There's some debates about technology and where we're going as a society and what happens when new technologies are introduced a bit too fast and a bit too intensely. You know, I think there's like the way that things go viral is a huge thing that's constantly on Hank's mind, and I think that's one of the things that most impacts how he views the world, and that bleeds through into these books. But it's also, you know, as far as the plot goes, this plot is extremely overarching. Every time people ask me if these books are worth reading or how good they are, I have to say yes, and then I have to say they're not at all what you think they're going to be, right? Like, technically, yes, they're alien first contact stories, but they're so much more about the social commentary and the social analysis of how humans respond to different things than they are about the aliens. The aliens are like a subplot. It's just the medium through which Hank is making his point, which is that humans are capable of a lot of good and capable of a lot of bad. And when we are not paying close attention to who has control of our instincts and our impulses, who is influencing us, if we're not paying a lot of attention to that, then we give that up. And that is the most valuable thing that we can give up. So they're very good books. You know, they're very much like, here is the plot. Like, the plots are hard to explain because the plots are, we have somebody looking for April. We have April being maybe dead. We have Andy living his like high roller, all over the world kind of lifestyle. And then we also have Miranda going undercover in a super high-tech lab for intentional corporate espionage. And all of that is interwoven within this like bigger struggle and overarching storyline of Carl and Fish fighting for the fate of humanity and using whatever they have to their disposal. And some of that is communicating through this book that many people find in the trash called The Book of Good Times, which actually, by the way, exists. Hank made that product, and it might still be a thing that you can buy, but it definitely did exist at one point where you could buy The Book of Good Times, limited print runs, and then follow the steps in the book to, you know, live life a little bit more fully, which was the whole point of The Book of Good Times. The point of The Book of Good Times is stop scrolling, get out of the phone, and go engage with real live humans, whether that's going to a silly little play or stopping to go get a sandwich because you need to eat, or, you know, in this book, The Book of Good Times is telling people, you know, like it's telling Andy how and when to invest and when to sell things because he needs a whole lot of money for the future. And so it's all sorts of insider trading, just he doesn't know the source of the insider trading kind of thing, right? So it's a lot of things like that. And that the concept of the Book of Good Times is really an interesting concept, and I really think it could have had its own book all on its own. So Hank, if you ever want to write another book about the other people who received the Book of Good Times and just call it Receiving the Book of Good Times as a spin-off, I think there would be a lot of people down for that, because that would be pretty cool. I'd be down for that, just a spin-off of one of the other random people in the midst of all of the Carl chaos, but who wasn't at the center of the Carl chaos. I think that'd be a pretty cool little book to read. But anyway, so that being said, Hank's books, there's so much more social commentary, and there's no way to review them without thinking about the impact of that social commentary, right? Where it's like the first one was all about fame. This one was all about power. And who has the power? What do you do when you have the power? How do you make sure that you're wielding that power in a way that is hopefully better for all of society in some regards? And what happens when you're not, right? All of those are questions that get explored in this book. Some questions about human rights, some questions about, how far will people go when the answer is, well, I just did that because I could, right? No one stopped me. I think that's one of the things that we're seeing right now with AI a lot, is that no one is stopping people from using AI to do really immoral things, especially to artists and with art. But we're seeing it with actors, right? Like now we can make 3D AI models of actors' bodies, which means that they don't have to do stunts, which is great for them, but that's an entire section of production gone, right? We also have the problem where we can CGI dead actors into movies, and then they're not getting paid for that work, even though it's a portrayal of the character. We're taking the human away from the art, and when we take the human away from the art, we stop taking care of the human. And that is the problem with, that's at the heart of the AI debates, right? Yes, we can have things write things for us, right? So you can go on to ChatGPT and ask it to write a book for you. It could do that in seconds. Is it going to be a good book? Maybe. Is it going to have the human elements that you really require to write a good book? Probably not. An AI could not have written the social commentary that Hank Green just wrote. It could make predictions, it could make statements, it can pull predictions and statements from other things that have been written. So I could ask AI to give me a social commentary on a current world event in the style of Hank Green's videos, and I bet it could do that. But the problem there is that we're not getting the actual human thought behind it, and in that we lose out on all of the beauty and wonder that comes from that human element, right? So there's a whole lot about it that, it's, again, a very timely book. I don't know how Hank managed to predict the future in so many ways, but truly, I do. I do know how he did that. Not that, he accurately actually predicted the future with alien invasions and stuff like that, but he has been such a student of how humans respond to things for so long, and how communities build and how people grow and connect to each other, right? He has been a student of all of that for so long that it makes perfect sense to me that he would be able to pretty accurately predict how certain groups of people will respond to certain stimuli and put that into a book in such a way that it feels like prophecy. Because he's been paying attention. And there's something to be said about just paying attention in that way. So I liked this book. It was a good book. I'm not as likely to reread this one as I am to reread the first one. And I think that's because they kind of play off of each other, and I haven't even reached the stages of the first one, right? So the reason that I liked An Absolutely Remarkable Thing so much is because in An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, April is experiencing fame and the spotlight and the pressure of that for the very first time. And as someone who is on YouTube, who is making videos, who is trying to become part of the public sphere, it very much was oh man, this is what I could be in for if things take off, right? It's that kind of story that gives me a little bit more insight into what could be coming my way if that were to progress in that way, right? And that is quite wonderful. And because of that, there was a lot of really important insight that I would want to go back and revisit. A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor, on the other hand, is more about what happens after you've already achieved that fame in the first place, and what happens, how you can find the things that give you value, whether those are the things that make you feel valued, or the things that allow you to add value to the world, or the things that just like, how do you become a happy person? I think this book really dives into all of that, but it's from the lens of after you've already achieved insane amount of fame or fortune or influence or power. And so it didn't feel quite as relevant to me at this time, even though like the social commentary is extremely relevant socially. The actual plot, like, it didn't resonate so deeply with me as the first one did, which I think is an important element in how we view books, right? I said this in my review of the first one, but I'm a firm believer that books find you when you need them. When it is the right time for you to read that book. And that's why you can have a book on your list for like 7 years and then finally pick it up and be like, wow, I'm so glad that I read this now and not when it came out. It's one of the most beautiful and wonderful things about books is that they never stop talking to you, and they never stop talking to the reader even when they're a couple years old, right? Because this one was when did this one come out? Yeah, this is a 2020 book. Either released in the middle of the pandemic or just before or just after, which is chaos. So it's impressive. It's really, really quite impressive. Anyway, have you read these books? I want to hear your thoughts on them. I'm curious if you feel the same way that I feel about Hank's writing, about his social commentary. I'm curious your thoughts on his social commentary as well. So if you read these books, please let me know. Let's chat about them, because now that I've read them both, it's like time to deep dive into just unpacking them, and I would love to do that with you. So yeah. Next up, I don't know what I'm going to read. I mean, I have a menagerie of options, right? I have quite a few things that I'm debating between. Some mysteries, maybe sci-fi, maybe fantasy, maybe going back to a classic that I haven't read in a long time, like The Outsiders. That could be pretty fun. Anyway, if you have thoughts on what I should read next, you can put those in the comments as well. Not everything on this bookshelf is things that I've read yet. A lot of them is just things that I've acquired over the years, I guess. That's the funny thing about books, right? You just gain more and more of them. So I will go figure out what I'm going to read next. I would really appreciate if you would like and subscribe, leave a comment, share this with a friend who you think would also enjoy these books. And until next time, I will see you then.